What's up, folks? Maximilian here, and welcome back to a returning episode of Real Talk, mostly because I think the topic being covered today really fits within this series of videos that kind of highly examine certain things going on within the fighting game community and the fighting games themselves along with my history of them. The question being asked today, are modern-day fighting game combos way too long? So, we might know fighting game combos as a key structure of how fighting games even function. Fighting games in general are based off a combo system that existed back from Street Fighter II, where you chain certain attacks into other attacks. And almost everything nowadays revolves around this. You see combo gauges, you see damage percentages, and you see all these things appear on the screen to reward you for the fact that your combo is really long. Of course, this comes with certain stipulations. Combos that are longer end up being harder to perform, and in some situations where the system isn't exactly pristined and finely tuned to that system where the combos can keep going on forever and ever and ever, you get certain cases like Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where you touch one character and they essentially die as long as you have a good team. Now, what I'm going to ask you guys is pretty important. Do you think this is okay? Do you think that fighting game combos should remain long? And I think the reason this should be asked, and the reason that we should get a cumulative example of what the community, or at least the folks on my channel think, is because it wasn't like this for a very, very, very long time. This is mostly a thing that is almost prevalent within the current generation, or the last generation of fighting games, over the past 6 years or so, or after like the Street Fighter 4 series. Certain fighting games like Guilty Gear, you can say as an example, have had very long combos, and they do. Some characters have some crazy long corner combos, but for the most part, most of them is just like a magic series of buttons going from light to medium to heavy, and then ending with a small ender, so they're the majority of like 6, maybe 7 hits, and if they have special moves, they can be a lot of hits, but it's not crazy long. They're over fairly fast. Fighting games before that, including the majority of Capcom stuff, don't have that long of combos. You might be saying, Max, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has the craziest combos of any fighting game. It's also the most broken. I'd agree with you to an extent. Only some characters in Marvel 2 actually have very, very long combos. And other characters, in fact, the greater majority of the roster of that game has very short stuff, like 1, 2, 3 into Super, 1, 2, 3 like Launcher into Ender. Things happen very quickly until you get like a Magneto or a Psylocke or a Sentinel or something like that, or an Iron Man for God's sake, that just take things to the nth degree. It gets a little crazy. Of course, other fighting games before this actually follow suit. The Marvel vs. Capcom series before Marvel 2 also had very short combos for the majority of characters. Things kind of change when you're in the corner because the way combos were structured in old Capcom fighting games kind of breaks when you're in the corner when you find certain loops, but a lot of the time they were short-ass combos. You compare them to like Injustice or Marvel 3 or even modern-day Killer Instinct for that fact, and things change dramatically. They're all pretty short and pretty easy to execute, and the fact of the matter is, back in the day, combos weren't that hard. But to me, it seems like the majority of fighting games now are specifically designed around combos being very long, that you can have a lot of opportunities to get a lot of big damage and very long combos, but it takes a long combo to get to that big damage. I don't know if you guys have watched Marvel vs. Capcom 2 streams or Marvel 1 videos on this channel, but you literally do 3 buttons into a super in Marvel 1 and it can take off half the opponent's life bar. It's not difficult, it's not hard, and what I want to ask is, should it be hard? Should it actually be difficult? Because a lot of these things are very prevalent now. Injustice, as an example, the Marvel vs. Capcom series, even the Street Fighter 4 series with FADC combos can get pretty long, but what I find interesting is that Street Fighter 4 is the most popular series of any fighting game around right now, but the majority of character combos can be fairly short. If you want to get big damage, it's pretty much a jump and attack, a regular button, and an uppercut. It's really not that hard to do. But nowadays, there seems to be an executional barrier with a lot of combos in fighting games. Some people might be saying, well, Max, something like a light, medium to heavy chain into Launcher into an OTG combo and all this stuff isn't hard, and I will agree with you. It's not hard to people like us. When you think of things like combos, you kind of got to understand that you're representing a majority of the community that actually plays this game that is very small. I'm talking probably less than 10% of the people that play fighting games can consciously have the muscle memory and memorization of how combos work to be able to repeatedly do that, much less the actual attention span to play a fighting game over and over and over again. The majority of folks, and the reason I can say this is because I have personal experience from back when I was a freaking kid, that badass combo you had back in the Street Fighter days was what? Jump in, heavy kick, and sweep. It was awesome! 2 hits, good damage, good stuff, and guess what? It still works in games like Street Fighter 4, and it still does pretty freaking good damage for the most part, and it works with almost everyone in the cast. I'm just saying, I think Street Fighter 4 still appeals to a lot of people, and people have gotten really good at Street Fighter 4 because they stuck with the game for so long. They learned the fundamentals of spacing, they learned all the other stuff around the little combos, and they can actually grow off of that and get bigger combos, and the fact that they're playing the game more and more and not intimidated by huge long combo strings is pretty much why I think Street Fighter 4 is more popular than anything right now. Albeit, I do still think that games like the Marvel vs. Capcom series have always appealed to people like me, very long combos. And other games like Killer Instinct are totally not devoid of this. What's funny is that the original Killer Instinct, the one that came back in 1994, was in fact the advent of crazy long, ridiculous combos because it was indeed built into the engine of the game. Because back in the 90s, combos was the hottest shit ever. Everyone loved doing combos. Games that had combos were the coolest stuff, and getting your combo to the highest amount was something that was always revered amongst your peers and the public. So I'm just saying that Killer Instinct started it, and it's taken it to a degree now where the new Killer Instinct revolves around it, so it's completely not excluded from this argument. That game, Injustice, and a lot of other big fighting games revolve around these huge long combos now. And all I'm saying is that, would you guys prefer seeing another fighting game come out that's kind of similar to Street Fighter 4 where you have very short, damaging combos? Because I do kind of miss that. I do think that some of the old classic 2D Capcom games that had these sweet, short, damaging combos at the cost of meter were kind of fun, and it made the game scary because everything was so damaging, which is also one of the reasons why the illustrious Street Fighter II Super Turbo ends up being one of the most revered games of all time, because it's a very scary fighting game to play. In a heartbeat, you can be freaking dead as a result of really good spacing mix-ups and small, short, damaging combos. Either way, I think that's all I got on this subject. It's something that's actually been in the back of my mind for a very long time, and I've seen folks between threads on like NeoGAF and SRK and certain other forums, and even on my Twitter, ask about long combos, and I can't do this stuff. How do I remember how to do this stuff? So I think it's something that's worth discussing. In summary, do you guys want to see shorter, more damaging combos in fighting games, or would you prefer the crazy long combo spectacle that certain games like Injustice and Killer Instinct and Marvel vs. Capcom have brought to the front? Thanks very much for tuning into all of this, guys. You can hit me up at Twitter or Facebook, which is Maximilian_, or Facebook at Maximilian Dude. Once again, guys, I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.